Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. On this episode, I'm going to be covering endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, basically my journey with it, what symptoms I had, and how I was diagnosed. And then I'll do another video on all the treatments that I've had because it's going to be quite a bit of a long video, so I want to split them up into two. Okay, so first of all, I'd say that I started getting endometriosis symptoms from 15, from when I started my period. I started my period and it was super, super heavy. And I remember I used to say to my mum, you know, my periods really hurt. I'm in a lot of pain. I feel as though I'm going to be sick. It was like that. It was so, so painful that I felt like I was going to be sick. I'd get hot and cold flushes. I couldn't get out of bed. I remember one time I was curled around the base of the toilet and I was just holding onto my womb. I remember saying to Mum, I cannot go to school today. Like, I just can't do it. It felt as though someone was dragging my womb from the inside and just pulling it out of me. It's the only way I can describe it. It was awful. And Mum used to say, well, my periods don't hurt me. Like, you know, it shouldn't be hurting that much, you know. Mine don't hurt, blah, blah, blah. She's going on about it. And I used to think to myself, because obviously I'm only 15, I never thought that I had a condition or a disease as such. I never thought that that would be the case. So I'm just sitting there thinking, oh my God, I must just really have a heavy period. So for years that went on, I'd be dealing with this pain month in, month out, and my periods would be really, really heavy. I think sometimes it even went on for 2 weeks. I used to find a lot of people on my Instagram, when I've said this, are like, oh, I have that. Is that also linked to endometriosis? And I remember speaking to one of the charities about it because it's not something that many people talk about. But whenever I used to take a bath on my time of the month, I would kind of get, I guess it's the endometrial lining that's shedding, kind of floating in the bath. So the only way I can describe it is fish food. It looked a little bit like fish food in the bath. That might sound disgusting, but I'd rather be informative and help somebody if they feel like they have it to getting diagnosed rather than just not saying this part of it just because it's a little bit gross. Yeah, that was one of the things. I used to see that and think that's a bit weird. I used to have a lot of clots in my periods because they were really, really heavy. No painkiller would touch the side. Literally, I'd still get so much pain. They did not help one bit. So a painkiller that I did try was Feminax, which I tried actually later on. Not at the beginning, so I hadn't heard of it. It was my little sister that actually told me about it. So I used that. I'd been to the doctors and I told them all about, you know, my heavy periods and how sore they were, etc. And they just said, look, go on Yasmin, the pill. It will help them. It will even them out. It will make them less heavy, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went on the pill, Yasmin. Which is kind of annoying because now I talk to the charities, they say that's such a cop-out, you know, like they just put you on this pill without even, you know, looking for anything else. They just think that they just kind of shove you off with the pill, you know, which isn't good. A lot of women as well don't even want to go on the pill because it changes up your hormone levels. Anyway, I went on this pill. Yasmin was good for my skin. I had horrendous acne at the time. And I just thought it was because I was a teenager, you know, that's why I was getting acne. I didn't know that it was linked to PCOS. So anyway, I'm going on about my life, thinking that I just have super heavy periods and, you know, that I'm struggling each month and in so much pain. It can affect your sex life. You know, sex can really, really hurt because that's the area where the endometrial lining has attached itself to. So it can super, super hurt. You can also find it in other places. So basically endometriosis is where the lining of your womb is found in other areas apart from your womb. So it can be found in the bowels, it can be found in your ovaries, your pelvic area. Honestly, it can be found in the weirdest places. It just grows, and then what happens is every time it's your monthly, it also sheds in those areas, and that's why you get severe pain everywhere. It's just honestly the weirdest, most awful disease ever, and they don't really know what it is. So back onto this, so obviously I was going to the doctors and they just kept brushing me off. I did at the time have private healthcare, Anyway, it got to the painful periods, the painful sexual intercourse. Then I was struggling with UTIs a lot. I'd always get a UTI, and I'd think, this is weird, because I had a partner of 7 years at the time. So, you know, it's not as though I wasn't used to my partner, or, you know, I was having different partners. It was my one partner, and I was getting UTIs. And then it was, you know, on the first part of your period, you would kind of have IBS symptoms, where you'd be doubled over in pain, and until you actually went to the toilet, which was a struggle, then you'd get a little bit better, but you'd get IBS type problems, you'd get cramps, the hot and cold flushes. So I used to find that a hot water bottle would help me, but it might not help other people. You can get back pain, a bit of sciatica, that sort of thing. It honestly depends where your endometriosis is growing, but it can be different for everyone. I've popped on my Instagram highlight reels, you know, the endometriosis symptoms, the info, and facts about endometriosis. So I'll read some out to you in a bit. So this did go on for quite a while, and then I finally decided that I would go and get private healthcare. No, yeah, I had private healthcare, so I was going to go and take that up. And I went there, went for my first appointment, and they've done blood tests. The blood tests always come back as normal. Everything's always normal. No, you're fine. Your hormone levels are normal. This is normal. That's normal. And it's like, listen, I know that something isn't normal because I can feel this in me, and you know your body. And as much as you're trying to tell a specialist, like, no, I know something's wrong, and they're trying to say, well, your blood tests have come back normal. It's like, well, I don't know, I can't answer that, you know? So anyway, then the next thing that they did was they put, I went for an ultrasound, and they put an internal ultrasound inside me, which, by the way, hurt me like mad. It was kind of like, sounds weird again, the pain that you had through having sexual intercourse. It was a bit bizarre at the time. And I remember saying to him, oh, that really hurts. And he goes, oh, does it? And I was like, yep, that hurts. So I think that was like one of the signs to him that something else was up. But anyway, in the internal scan, you could see my polycystic ovaries. And it was only on one of my ovaries. I think it was my right ovary. And I remember when he told me, I burst out crying, because I remember thinking, oh my God, I knew something was wrong with me. And this has just been confirmed. And obviously I didn't have a clue. I'd never heard of PCOS before. I'd never even heard of endometriosis, and I hadn't even been told this yet. But, you know, I just remember thinking, oh my God, it's on my ovaries. And as a woman who wanted children and a family, you kind of think, what does this mean? Like, you found something on my ovaries. So, you know, I sat there and I was crying, and I didn't even know what it meant, nothing. But I was just in floods of tears. So then he sat me down and he said, listen, I think you also might have a condition called endometriosis, and I'd like to do a laparoscopy on you, because, you know, you're saying that it hurt for the internal scan, you're saying that you're getting the bleedings, etc. And I don't just think it's your PCOS that you have. And sometimes they can come hand in hand. A lot of people who have endometriosis also have PCOS. So I was like, right. And he was like, you know, depending on how bad it is, and depending on your ovaries and whether you're ovulating, etc., which we can do tests for, is depending on whether you can conceive. So at that point, I was just left distraught. I remember leaving in floods of tears, calling my mum, calling my dad, saying, you know, I have PCOS and I might potentially have endometriosis. On one hand, you're like, you know, there could be a weight lifted off your shoulders, because you're thinking, okay, at least I wasn't going crazy, and what I was imagining, you know, is actually correct. I'm not just imagining it. But then on the other hand, you kind of wish that they told you that everything was fine. So it was one of those situations, you know, it was really hard. And I was young as well. I can't remember how old I was. It was definitely early 20s. Especially when you've been with your partner for a little while, you're starting to think, you know, about children, etc. So I don't know, it definitely hit home. But anyway, then a laparoscopy was booked in for me. But I'm going to get onto all my treatments and what treatments I had and what I think is good for somebody, because it worked for me, especially to have my miracle baby, in the next episode, because I don't want to kind of bombard you guys with all this information at first. But what I do want to do is just go through a couple of the endometriosis highlight reels on my page. So I think on this video, I'm just going to do Endo Facts, because when I read them, it's pretty wild. So we asked over 1,500 people about their experiences of living with endometriosis. Over 30% of women with endometriosis experience a diagnosis delay of over 10 years. Like, imagine waiting over 10 years just to be told of something that you have, which you thought you had. You know, you had an inkling you had it, and it took over 10 years to be told told that for definite. Over 45% of women with endometriosis struggle to conceive or miscarried. I mean, I'll go on to my journey in the next episode about the fact that I was told I couldn't conceive naturally, and it breaks your heart. Over 80% of women say living with endometriosis affects their mental health and well-being. I know a lot of people that struggle with this because of the things that endometriosis brings, like infertility, and the fact that it's not your fault, and then you're sitting there with all these mental health struggles, the fact that you're in so much pain and you can't do anything about it. I know after speaking to the charity that a lot of people suffer with mental health with this, and if you don't have a strong support system, then it can be really, really tough, especially as not a lot of people know about the disease. Over 40% of those affected suffer from stage 4 or severe endometriosis. I know when I first found out I had endometriosis, I was given stage 2. It was mildish. And then the next one, it went to that. So it can grow pretty quick. And that was when I'd got it removed as well. So 20% of women with endometriosis have had 5 surgical procedures to help relieve their symptoms. Over 65% of women were wrongly diagnosed before being correctly diagnosed with endometriosis. I know that I wasn't wrongly diagnosed as such because I hadn't been referred to a specialist, but I know that I got told I had IBS. I got told that it was just my hormones, and that's why I needed to go on the pill. I literally got told that it was everything and just a heavy period, apart from the fact that it could be endometriosis and polycystic ovaries. Over 90% of women tell of their struggle in the workplace due to the lack of understanding around endometriosis. I know that, like I said, in school, I couldn't go to school for like the first week of my period. It was that bad. I was bent over. I was doubled over. There's just no chance. Over 90% of women with endometriosis suffer with 5 or more painful symptoms. Around 50% of women with endometriosis are affected by loss of earnings. 95% of women said endometriosis significantly impacts their relationship, work, and home life. Over 60% of women with endometriosis are happy with the care they have received. I'm going to go through the endometriosis symptoms now because obviously I've gone through my symptoms, so I think it ties in nicely. So this is on my Instagram, on my highlight reel. The most common sign of endometriosis is severe pelvic pain. One of the most common signs of endometriosis is irregular periods. Now, as much as this is one of the common signs, mine were regular. So just because you're having a regular period doesn't mean you don't have endometriosis, because mine were regular before I started, obviously, having the treatments. One of the most common signs of endometriosis is severe cramping. Another one of the common signs is heavy menstrual bleeding. And obviously, I've kind of touched on the whole bath and the womb lining coming out there. Another one is painful intercourse. I had that. Another common sign of endometriosis is painful bladder and bowel movements. Again, UTIs, etc., and IBS type symptoms. One of the most common signs of endometriosis is gastrointestinal symptoms. Another one, urinary urgency or frequency. Another one is fatigue. And another one is infertility. Another common sign of endometriosis is lower back pain. And obviously the infertility is probably where I started to realise that I had endometriosis because I started to try for children. It's been a pretty heavy journey. And I know that it can be quite a lonely world out there with endometriosis and polycystic ovaries just because no one really knows anything, and also trying to explain to friends and family who don't have it, who don't feel the symptoms that you feel, can be really, really tough to explain it to them. And so it is good for friends and family members to kind of maybe understand the disease a bit more and to maybe listen to these videos to understand what their friends or family or colleagues are going through, because it is really, really tough, you know, especially as there is no cure for endometriosis and polycystic ovaries. I know I mostly touch on endo more than PCOS, but I know more about endo. PCOS really kind of, it's on one of my ovaries, and it didn't affect me in terms of my weight, which I know it can affect other people for. It just affects me, you know, with my acne, my skin. When I did conceive, it was from the other ovary, so it wasn't even from my PCOS ovary. So yeah, I will cover all that in my next video. But I hope you found this video kind of helpful, maybe a bit insightful in areas that you didn't know certain things. I try and do as much as I can on my Instagram for endo, but obviously I have just had a baby as well. But any questions you have on it, just head over to my Instagram or pop it in the comment section below, and I'll try and get back to you guys on the next video. So the question of the day is, what is my recovery or experience with my laparoscopy? So I would say that my experience with laparoscopy was, I was scared at first. I hadn't had this operation before. I didn't know what it entailed. He told me that it was a keyhole surgery, so I'd have a few scars on my belly. And then they'd go in and they'd burn away, etc. I'll get into that on the next episode. But when I woke up, I remember him saying, you might get a pain in your shoulder and it'll be from where the gas is trying to escape from. I definitely had that pain in my shoulder. It was killing me. I can't explain it, but it was so sore. But then once that gas had gone, I could do things. It was just a little bit sore to bend over, kind of as if maybe you've done like 100 sit-ups in one go. Bit bruised. I was a bit swollen. Painkillers helped me. I think I was on also antibiotics to make sure I didn't get an infection. I just basically stayed at home and bed rested for a bit. I think within a couple of weeks, it had gotten a lot better. It was the internal bruising and the swelling. And I think you bleed for a little bit as well, if I can remember rightly. But yeah, it wasn't one of the most horrific operations I've had. In fact, it wasn't too bad, honestly. And the relief you feel afterwards is worth going through it. So don't worry about it, and you've got the people there to support you. And also there's networks for people that have endometriosis. Connect with somebody on Instagram that has it, message me on Instagram or message down below, and I can always reach out to you guys. I speak to everyone about it on my Instagram as it is. So that is everything for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the video, and click the like button if you guys did. There is a notification bell, and then subscribe as well. And then also, can you follow me on Instagram? And I shall see you over on my next video. Take care, guys.